Hi, I'm Ross.
I'm Matt.
We're the Duffer Brothers. We created Stranger Things.
And we're going to be going through the show's biggest moments.
Well, we always knew we wanted the show to open with a bang, and when we came up with this idea, it was always about a supernatural kidnapping. So we knew that was going to be our opening hook. We were really inspired by Close Encounters of the Third Kind in terms of the kidnapping of Barry, where it is really terrifying, but at the end of the day, you don't fully see what happened, which is why we wanted to just go to that light bulb at the end instead of actually showing the Demogorgon taking Will. We wanted it to feel like he just vanished into thin air, and then our characters have to sort of piece together what happened. And kidnappings are hard enough to solve, but how do you solve it if it's supernatural?
So poor Barb, she gets taken at the end of episode 2, season 1, and
she's abandoned by Nancy.
And then she meets her end at the top of episode 3.
Nancy! Hello?
Barb actually made it further and longer than she was supposed to make it. In the original pilot that sold to Netflix, Barb met her end at the end of the first episode. We were, of course, surprised, but sort of not surprised by Barb's explosion in popularity after the show was released. I still get questions about Barb. It's never going to end. She's going to haunt me for the rest of my life, I think.
But Shannon Purser is just, she was incredible, and that's not a lot of episodes and not a lot of time to make the kind of impact that she did.
What did she have? I think she had something like 25 lines, and now there are murals of her and fan dedications, and it's still unbelievable.
And Funko dolls.
Will, are you here? Okay, good.
We always knew we wanted her to have sort of a Ouija board type communication with Will. I think very early on we had the idea of communicating through lights that we were going to use. I mean, even in the first episode when Will disappears, that the light bulb in the shed goes bright. To this day, we don't really remember who came up with the Christmas lights idea, but the minute we had Winona cast in that role, we thought this is sort of her Close Encounters Richard Dreyfuss moment, and that he becomes obsessed with this image of this mountain, and he creates the mountain out of mashed potatoes, and he's crazy, but he's not crazy. He's actually right. And so we wanted to give Joy's character, played by Winona, that kind of a moment. And that's her moment, that Christmas lights moment.
And we wanted to kind of destroy the house in the same way that Dreyfuss destroys the house in Close Encounters. So we've done that 2 seasons now, but then we decided that might be enough. She's destroyed the house 2 years in a row now, so we take a break on season 3.
Okay, baby, talk to me. Where are you?
She's communicating him, and of course, it starts with what seems to be a sweet communication. Him telling Will telling Joyce that he's okay, and it quickly becomes terrifying when he spells out R-U-N.
What should I do?
And you realize the Demogorgon is right behind, and that's one of our first clearest glimpses of this horrific monster.
Season 1, we were attempting to do everything practically. We tried to shoot the Demogorgon coming through the wall, and it looked absolutely ridiculous. So that was the first shot that became full CG.
I hope that footage never sees the light of day. I mean, because it's funny, but it's certainly not scary.
It's certainly not. Yeah, so
Those government officials make a really good-looking fake body, and we knew we wanted to, at the end of 3, we wanted this discovery of this body, and we wanted to feel the impact of that on our kids and really remind everyone how serious this is. So even though the show has fun, there are real stakes, and Will's in real danger. But of course, it's a shock when you realize that that Will's not in fact dead at all. And really for Hopper, it's this epiphany that, oh my God, Joyce Byers has been right this whole time. There is something more going on here. And after that, he really just goes into the deep end of sort of investigating this conspiracy. So that's a huge turning point for his character.
That was really fun in that was a real, prosthetic build of Noah's body that was incredibly, frighteningly realistic. And it's still around in the warehouse. So every once in a while I run into it. It looks like, a dead Noah Schnapp. It's very disturbing.
It was freaked out.
There's a dead Barb there somewhere, somewhere too. But Noah gets a kick out of it. He loves it. He showed it to his mom.
He likes to freak out his parents with it.
Yeah.
Dentist office opens in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
We really wanted to show when Mike goes over the cliff. First of all, I mean that's obviously a crazy thing to do, but it's just how much he values his friendship with Dustin. So it's a really brave thing as well. And we wanted the bully storyline to reach a real climax, which is sort of what that whole core sequence does. And obviously he's saved at the last second by 11.
Ah! She broke my arm. My arm. Go.
When I think about it, it was a very difficult shoot on that quarry just to get down there with the kids. And I don't believe that quarry's there anymore, but it is in a lot of movies. And, we're happy how it turned out.
We wanted to have our sort of iconic E.T. bike chase sequence. We knew we needed the government chasing after our kids. We were pretty adamant at the time that we did not want that to be a CG van, and that we really wanted to flip a van. Turns out it's very difficult to flip a van of that size all the way over. The first time they did it, I think it didn't work at all.
Smushed our camera.
It mushed our camera. Of course, the kids were not there. You shoot the van separately and then the kids, so nobody was actually ever in danger, thank God. And then, of course, there was pressure again to do the sequence CG, and we said, let's just, our special effects guru, Caius, was confident that it would work the second time, and we took the chance, rolled the dice, and the van flipped, and that's what's in the show.
Perfectly, yeah.
Yeah, it was perfect.
No CG involved, except pacing in the kits.
You go to school dances with someone that, someone that you like.
A friend?
Not a friend, someone like a...
Well, with Mike 11 in season 1, we knew we wanted their relation to build to this moment. Sort of, they're waiting for things to go down, and they're at their school and they're alone. And Mike is just sort of fumbling with his feelings. It's this idea of he's still a kid, and this idea of sort of your first crush, and how can he, sort of that interaction between them. We thought Finn and Millie just did such an incredible job. And of course, we plant there the snowball, which doesn't pay off until the end of season 2. But we were excited. That was again one of the first ideas we had for season 2. Is we've got to pay off that discussion about the snowball that they had in season 1.
Mike has to take 11 to the snowball.
That's right.
Right.
Come on, you son of a bitch. You see it?
No. Where?
Come on. Where are you?
Come on!
So the end of season 1, it was kind of with the teens, we wanted a very Nightmare sort of on Elm Street climax.
There are always booby traps in these movies.
We love booby traps. I mean, so and who doesn't love a good booby trap? So the idea was always like, we got to have the teens try to take this guy out. We were filming with a guy in a suit, so we actually had the monster there. Of course, this is where Steve kind of makes his first turn into good guy territory, because prior to that he was, a pretty big douchebag, if not a charming douchebag. It wasn't originally supposed to be Steve who rescued them in this moment. I think it was originally going to be Jonathan's dad, Lonnie, and so but over the course of shooting, like, we all kind of fell in love with this kid, Joe Curie, and Steve was originally going to be kind of an unredeemable character. The charm was so undeniable that we were like, we got to, I think he's got to be the one who comes in and saves the day. And he took his jock athlete abilities and used them to help defeat this monster.
When 11 sort of ends up, she's weakened, but eventually she sort of uses the last of her powers in order to confront this Demogorgon who's about to kill her new friend. So she sort of uses all the last of her willpower to confront this thing. She slams it up against the classroom wall, and she ends up making it dissolve. And I think what we were really excited about that scene was that we weren't going to play it like an action movie. We were going to play it sadder and slower and more tragic.
Goodbye, Mike.
And treat it as it is saying goodbye, in the same way that E.T. says goodbye to Elliot at the end of that film. So we saw it more as that than a fully triumphant crushing of this creature that you might see in a typical action or horror film.
I remember shooting that scene too, and that was one of those scenes where Millie, and you have to keep in mind, she was only 11, actually age 11 at the time. She was just so incredible, and it was one of those things where everyone on the crew just was blown away by her performance. And I think we all knew we had, gotten something special that day. And that was when we even got into the editing room. I think we saw that sequence cut together for the first time. It had that music from our composers, Kyle and Michael, already in there. Our sound designer had already done a pass on it, and we haven't touched it. We never touched it. That was the scene. We said that was it. That's incredibly rare, It just came together.
No signal.
What?
No signal. It's 8:15. You're late.
Yeah, I lost track of time. I'll signal next time, all right? And it's 8:15. It's not 8:15.
8:15.
Obviously, even though 11 vanished, we reveal at the end of the first episode of season 2 that 11 is alive. And we really wanted to do it in a way that we did this sort of slow panning shot around all of the cabin until we finally landed on her. We just sort of wanted to tease her and hear her voice, and just, you wanted the audience to sort of sit up and be like, could it be? Is it really her? And then finally land on her and do this big reveal that not only is she alive, but that she's been living with Hopper this whole time.
When we were talking about early season 2 ideas, I think maybe that was, idea number 2. Idea number 1 was that, Will, of course, was going to be possessed by this thing. Dealing with the after effects of having been in the Upside Down for that long. And idea number 2 was, we had to put Hopper and 11 together. And a lot of that was in response to shooting season 1 and us being pretty consistently blown away by both David Harbour and Millie's performance. And we thought, what happens if we put these two powerhouse actors together? We've got to do that. there's a sequence, it's in episode 3 of season 2, when Will is pulled into the Upside Down when he's in the school, which is sort of a very Nightmare on Elm Street / The Shining kind of vibe.
True.
And then he runs out onto the field. I mean, I'm thrilled with how that turned out. And as far as the show goes, it really did a lot what we wanted to do with season 2, which was sort of up the scale and up the scope. There's something about the image of that enormous monster towering over small little Will on that field. They got that huge crane shot up, made Noah feel absolutely tiny, and it's just, I think, a pretty effective sequence. We knew that getting the shadow monster to work, wanted him made of all these little tiny particles, and we knew that was going to be difficult, and that was the first sequence where the shadow monster, I think, really came together, and we were confident that this was going to work.
What the hell?
Dart?
Yeah, Dart, in a Gremlins-like way, Dustin, this is the moment where Dustin realizes that this cute, strange but cute creature that he found is not exactly a friendly, even though he has sort of formed a bond with it. It is, in fact, a baby Demogorgon. So we decided that, he had to do something terrible and really upsetting to really hit home this idea that this is not a friendly creature. So I like cats, but we're dog people, so we decided to not hurt a dog. And
can you imagine if it was a dog? I don't think the show wouldn't have come back from that, but it survived this cat killing.
It survived the cat murder.
But then to make things better at the end, I don't know if you noticed, but at the end when we visit Dustin's house, at the end of season 2, you see that they have a new cat, Twos. So all is fine. All is well. They have a new cat.
And we have a little nod to poor Muse in season 3 if fans are paying attention, and I think Muse lives on.
So Jonathan and Nancy is sort of the love story that 15 hours to resolve and to finally get there. And I think a lot of that has to do with sort of Jonathan's sort of shyness and reluctance and lack of confidence. And we knew going into season 2 that we actually had to finally bring these two together. And we decided pretty early on we wanted them sort of bonding on this journey, and as they make headway towards redeeming or getting some sort of redemption for Nancy's friend Barb.
We looked at Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, where Indiana's in one room and Willie's in the other, and she wants him to come over, and there's sort of this really fun back and forth, which we really looked at.
And you're just too proud to admit that you're crazy about me, Dr. Jones.
If you want me, Willie, you know where you can find me.
5 minutes. You'll be back over here in 5 minutes.
When we did the scene with Jonathan and Nancy, just to build up that tension of just cutting back and forth between them, and then suddenly someone's right at the door, and it just led to this kiss. So that was a big inspiration for us. We wanted a little bit of that screwball comedy a feel between them that then led to this moment that I know a lot of fans had been waiting for a long time.
Please, wake up, please. Wake up!
There's been a lot of movies. I'm sure there have been TV shows also about kids who are possessed by some sort of evil. So I was always trying to figure out how do we not do the same thing that's been done over and over again. And basically what we decided to do was have this possession, this more slow, drawn out, and have him just very slowly become possessed by this thing. He almost, for the first half of the season, Will operates as like a spy on behalf of the good guys. I mean, he's able to give them insight into what this monster is doing and thinking.
If you know what he's seeing and feeling, maybe that's how we can stop him. Maybe all of this is happening for a reason.
So you get to the point where you're kind of reassured and you trust what Will is going to say. How could you not? Look how innocent and cute this child is. And then, so we thought it was fun to finally, we finally got to the point where we go, okay, this is the moment that Will is going to turn. And we don't do a lot of twists on the show, and we thought that was a great way to do it. It results in the death of a lot of soldiers in this sort of aliens-like sequence down in the tunnels.
It does not turn out well for Bob either, but it's not poor Will's fault. He's possessed. We were always excited by this idea that, of course, 11 is the number 11, meaning there were a lot of others out there. The season 2 is a lot about her searching for her place in the world and where does she fit. So this idea of her finding someone her own, which is, what she calls her sister, was an exciting idea for her, just to be like, oh, maybe this is my place in the world. So, and I think Millie did a great job, and Linnea too, when they have that sort of first meeting in our Warriors-esque warehouse, where you see this sort of hope for the first time of, oh, maybe this is my place in the world. But of course, ultimately she realizes that, she has already found a place, and it belongs in Hawkins with her friends.
Bob, when we initially conceived of the character, he was just supposed to be this dorky, clueless boyfriend of Joyce who gives Will some terrible advice that results in him getting possessed. But then when we cast Sean Astin, it was sort of like a Joe Keery situation that we fell in love with Sean and what he was doing with the character. And Bob was supposed to meet his end around maybe episode 3 or 4, and we couldn't kill Bob. It just felt it was too hard, so we just kept putting it off and off and off until eventually we got to the penultimate episode, which is episode 8, and we said, if we're going to do this thing, we have to do it.
Someone's got to go.
Sean didn't want to go. We didn't want Sean to go. The crew and the cast had all fallen in love with Sean Astin at this point. It was a really sad night filming his death scene. But it was also oddly comedic because obviously we didn't have a real demo dog there. And in fact, one of our writers, Kate, happened to be visiting set. She was about the right size to play a demo dog. So we said, Kate, will you just go in? And she did, and she got blood all over her hands and just murdered Sean Astin.
Well, 11 closing the gate is obviously the climactic sequence to season 2, and she's drawing from all that she's learned this season, particularly with her journey to her sister, and sort of taking all this pain that she's had and using it to close the gate. And we wanted to also have this sort of an emotional heft to it, and not just be about action or just using her powers. It's really about 11 using everything that she's learned and all this hardship in her life and using that to her advantage.
I want you to find something from your past, something that angers you. Now channel it.
Well, of course, Papa Hopper is at the same time warding off demo dogs, and David was very excited to be firing that gun. And I think it was fun. It was just both of them in this little cage, and we were all surrounded by green screen, which is really the first time we've done it, because we try to do as much practically as we can. It was sort of an oddly intimate sequence to film, and it was a lot of fun.
I felt like, we stepped on the set. I was like, what is this, a Marvel movie that we're doing all of a sudden? Like, it felt unlike anything we'd ever done before. That was terrifying. We didn't have that long to shoot it. We had maybe a day and a half to do the sequence. They were both phenomenal in that sequence, and we're really proud with how it turned out. And a lot of it, the credit also goes to the visual effects team, who really kind of pulled off a miracle getting that done in time.
Hi, we're the Duffers, and these are some of your favorite moments from Season 1 and Season 2.
And we can't wait to see what you respond to in Season 3.